This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
At least 9 people killed in Sudan's capital Khartoum as security forces clear protest camp. Trial of Egypt's most wanted terror suspect Hesham Ashmawy begins. And Uganda reproductive health providers raise concerns that not enough men are using contraception. A warm welcome to Africa Live. I am Peninah Karibe, and joining me in studio with a sneak peek of what's ahead in business news is Uche.
Thanks, Peninah. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live Biz. China releases white paper detailing its stance on the trade war with the U.S. And the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration discloses that Boeing 737 MAX aircraft contains improperly manufactured parts. Of course, all that coming up within the program. For now, it's back to you, Peninah.
Thank you, Uche. We begin in Sudan, where medical and opposition sources have said the death toll in Monday's violence in Khartoum has reached at least 9. Security forces stormed a protest camp in the capital in the worst violence since President Omar al-Bashir was overthrown in April. Following a night of violence, protesters were seen erecting barricades using bricks and flaming tires in preparation to block entry to the sit-in in central Khartoum. Security forces are accused of responding with force and live ammunition in an attempt to clear a protest camp in the central part of the city. However, a spokesman for the Transitional Military Council has denied the claims of use of force. Protesters have been demanding that a civilian government take over the running of the country. In response to the protests in Khartoum, the European Union has called on Sudan's military leaders to allow people to protest peacefully and called for a speedy transfer of power to civilians. Security forces stormed a protest camp in the Sudanese capital Khartoum on Monday morning, and at least 9 people were reported to have been killed in the worst violence since the overthrow of President Omar al-Bashir in April. A spokeswoman for the European Commission told journalists in Brussels that the European Union's priority was a quick transfer of power to a civilian authority.
We are following the evolution of the situation in Sudan very closely, including today's attacks on civilian protesters, and we call on the Transitional Military Council to act responsibly and respect people's rights to peacefully express their concerns. Any decision to intensify the use of force can only derail the political process. And as you know, the European Union's priority remains the rapid transfer of power to a civilian authority.
Sudan has been experiencing political instability since the ouster of Omar al-Bashir. As Sarah Kim looks at the impact of the latest developments in Sudan on the country's economy.
The state of the economy was one of the reasons for the uprising that toppled former President Omar al-Bashir.
The recession started in 2011 after the independence of Juba, South Sudan. The north lost 3/4 of its oil revenue to the south. Agricultural production dropped as well, therefore increasing the budget deficit. Inflation reached 75% and the US dollar jumped to 60 Sudanese pounds.
But inevitably, because of the instability and constant demonstrations and sit-ins, the situation has not improved.
The political tensions have not helped the economic situation. Unemployment increased from 14% to 22%. Inflation is exceeding the 76% mark, and the US dollar went up from 60 to 70 Sudanese pounds. The foreign reserves are dropping by the day. The foreign currency black market is flourishing, and there is a lack of food and medicine in the markets.
Several people were killed in clashes on Monday at the main sit-in in Khartoum. Experts are calling for quick fix solutions to help recover the economy.
Until now, the transitional leadership has not announced any economic plans. It's preoccupied with the political standoff. But there must be some kind of vision to protect the nation from hunger and poverty. Agricultural production must resume immediately and make better use of the natural resources in the country to create immediate revenue.
Sudan's neighbors, such as Egypt, have been lending a hand to the stricken nation.
Saudi Arabia and the UAE have stepped in and delivered $500 million to the Sudanese Central Bank, and they have promised more in the near future. Egypt has been providing humanitarian aid, but all this is not enough. The economy needs billions of dollars and an aggressive economic plan to recover.
Experts say Sudan needs the transitional period to be swift and peaceful. Economic reforms and production should begin quickly if the country is to survive bankruptcy. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
To Egypt now, where the first court session for terror suspect Hesham Ashmawy since his capture and extradition to Egypt was held Monday. After statements from the defense teams for Ashmawy and other terror suspects, the court adjourned till July 2nd. Let's get more now on that. And CGTN's Yasser Hakim is live for us in Cairo. Yasser, you mentioned in your report that Hesham Ashmawy was not present in court. Do you have any idea why?
Well, according to a dialogue that happened between Hesham Ashmawy's lawyer in the court and the judge, the lawyer asked the judge, why is Hesham Ashmawy not in court? Why is he not present today? And the judge said that we did not receive any documents to prove that he is now ready to be on trial, or that he is in Egypt. The lawyer responded that everyone saw on TV that Hesham Ashmawy has been delivered to Egypt, extradited to Egypt. We've all watched it on TV. And the judge replied that we don't take TV as a source for us. Documents are the source. We have requested from the authorities to hand over the documents of Hesham Ashmawy and to hand him over to us so that he can be ready for trial. And we are waiting for the documents and the paperwork, and waiting for him to be handed over to court. I guess this could be, or hopefully this could be, by the 2nd of July, which is the next session, because it had been adjourned to the 2nd of July, whereby maybe by then the documents will be ready and that he will be present in court on that day.
And yes, sir, the report says that Ashmawy is going to be tried on two courts, a civil and military court. Can you give us more details about the different cases he's facing?
All right, he's obviously been accused of about 54 counts of murder, crimes, terrorism, being part of a terrorist group, establishing terrorist group, espionage with foreign entities such as Hamas, and therefore this has been also part of different attacks that he has been masterminding before, such as the Farafra attack, which has killed scores of soldiers and policemen. There's also his failed assassination attempt of the Minister of Interior, and the assassination of the Prosecutor General. Those are some of these attacks, and one on Copts in Egypt. Now, the ones that have been targeting the soldiers and policemen have gone to a military court, and in this one he has been sentenced to death penalty. The ones that have been against the failed attempt against the Minister of Interior, as well as the Copts and so forth, that goes to and several other crimes, that goes to a court, which is the civil court, which are two other cases, and those are still ongoing. They have not received any verdict yet. So concerning the military court, where he has been already sentenced to death, he will be now, since he's back, he will be given the chance to appeal and the chance to defend himself. So we expect that this court might reopen the case and retry Hesham Ashmawy, and the process will go on as it is until a new verdict is announced. For the ones that are still ongoing, such as the one we've seen today, the court is still ongoing, and there are sessions coming up in the next few months and weeks. Well, this will continue as it is, but he will attend, and with his lawyer, he will also be given the chance to appeal or to defend himself before a verdict is announced. So that's why there are two types of courts that he will be facing, and there will be more than one case for him, and we even expect more cases once the investigation, which is ongoing now with the police and the intelligence services, maybe new information will come up, and also new cases could be filed against Hesham Ashmawy in the next few weeks. So there's still a lot of activity to be going on in courts in the next few weeks and months before a final verdict is announced against him.
All right, Yasser, thank you for that update. Yasser Hakim, live in Cairo. Reproductive health providers in Uganda are concerned that not enough men are using contraception, despite an increase in women choosing to engage in birth control. Cultural norms and poor perceptions have been cited as some of the key factors hindering men from uptake of these services. CGTN's Hilary Ayesiga reports.
Contraception in a single dose. Women at this health facility are being given an injectable contraceptive. A new report by Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health shows that more women in sub-Saharan Africa are taking up the service and at a faster rate than expected.
Accessibility has increased. We've been lucky to have quite a number of donors interested in funding some of these family planning commodities. That means people get these facilities either cheaply or for free.
Health experts say while women are receptive to contraception, fewer men are taking on birth control methods. Uganda has one of the fastest growing populations in the world according to the United Nations, but health workers are urging men to use contraceptives to avoid the economic hardship of having more children than they can support. Men have options like vasectomies or using condoms. Still, culture is affecting their acceptance.
Barriers like culture and religion didn't help us much. We come from a patriarchy sort of society where the men make all the decisions. So if you don't engage the decision makers, they definitely won't welcome this.
Officials want more reproductive health awareness, specifically targeting men. The message has sunk in well for some like Edward Bawabye.
I do not have stress in my home. If you have many children, you suffer the stress. But now I am living a good life.
Bawabye's partner also says she's determined to stay on contraceptives until she's ready for her next child.
My firstborn is 7 years old and the second child is 1 year. Family planning is helping us to develop.
With more advocacy, reproductive health experts hope they can get more men also accepting the responsibility of birth control. Hilary Ayesiga, CGTN, Kampala.
You're watching Africa Live. We're taking a short break. Coming up, Egypt sets a world record for the longest food table at a Ramadan meal. And agencies clear controversial food samples distributed to northern Uganda.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca, among the crowds in Cairo,
who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
Along the waters of the Nile, along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Uganda's Ministry of Health says samples of food distributed in the northeastern part of the country were free of any heavy metal and pesticides. 4 people died and over 200 were reported to have fallen ill after consuming fortified foods early this year. CGTN's Leon Senyange has more.
Investigations by Uganda's Ministry of Health, the World Health Organization and the World Food Programme and other government agencies have revealed that the super cereal did not contain aflatoxins or any other causative agents. The tested samples were collected from the World Food Programme warehouses, health facilities and also patients' homes. In March this year, 4 people died after consuming the distributed cereal. Over 290 people also fell sick. The World Food Programme says the fortified food came from a Turkish supplier. The WFP has since suspended distribution of the food from the said supplier. Independent tests have also been carried out on the super cereals from other suppliers. Leon Sanyange, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Every 1st of June, the world marks the International Children's Day. In Senegal, the Chinese medical mission in the country celebrated the day with children at the Diamniadio Children's Hospital. They included school kits for children, food and technical equipment for hospital workers. The China-built hospital offers a wide range of healthcare services. Since its inauguration in 2014, dozens of patients have benefited in the rural area of Senegal. Apart from the donations, the Chinese medical mission is also working on creating a recreational area for children.
We took advantage of Children's Day and also Ramadan, which is currently being celebrated in Senegal, to offer food not only to the hospital staff, but also to patients and some local residents who have welcomed us. We are here as a result of cooperation between China and Senegal, and this is a way of sharing joy with the people.
China is a strategic partner to Senegal. It built this hospital, which sees an average of 400 patients per day from all regions of Senegal and also from Mauritania. The technical mission had the good idea of celebrating children today, as is currently being done in China. They brought gifts for the children and for the parents. Of uttermost importance is the park they have set up for the children who come and are hospitalized. This playground allows them to have a good time, forget their illness, and not be exposed to danger outside.
It is both a surprise and a great joy for me. I did not expect this humanistic gesture. I'm very happy and it makes me feel better and gives my child a smile. The hospital already takes good care of us with proper care and special attention. In addition, they still come to offer us gifts. I'm really happy today and I welcome the relationship between our two countries.
During Ramadan, Muslims fast from sunrise to sunset. As believers break their fast, groups in Senegal prepare bread as well as hot drinks to hand out to those in need. CGTN's Asta Tal followed a group in the capital city of Dakar, helping out their community.
Before the sun sets, members of the Jeunes des Rems get to work. They're preparing bread and tea for passerbys and cars. The group came together before the start of the holy Muslim month of Ramadan. They wanted to create a way to give back to those in need.
Since the first day of Ramadan till now, we are giving to those in need for the breaking of the fast. We are providing the bread and tea.
During the month of Ramadan, able Muslims are obligated to fast from sunrise to sunset. They're also encouraged to give to charity as well as their communities.
You know, the month of Ramadan is one of sharing and forgiveness. It's important for Muslims to engage in this. Share what they have with the most poor. Give to people so that they don't need to go look for food. So show what we have and sharing joyfully with others. That's what's important.
The Jeunes des Rems started by using funds gathered from members of the group. They then started reaching out to the neighborhood for help.
We wrote letters asking for support and gave them to figures of authority in this neighborhood. They all gave what they could, and we thanked them for their contribution.
The loaves of bread and piping hot tea are passed out to anyone who comes by. Drivers stuck on the road as the sun sets also don't have to fret about not being able to break their fast.
What they're doing here is good. Those who don't have the means to break the fast can come here. They can get a piece of bread, some coffee or tea.
As Ramadan comes to an end, the spirit of giving continues here. Asta Tal for CGTN in Dakar, Senegal.
Measuring just over 3,000 meters, Egypt's Ramadan feast table has set the world record for the longest food table at a Ramadan meal. Nearly 7,000 people attended the event, which was held at Egypt's new administrative capital on Saturday in the desert east of Cairo. Let's get more details of this record-breaking table from Adel Mahroui.
Ramadan spirit has inspired officials of the new administrative capital to set up this table. This new city aims to be an outstanding African city in all aspects. It's why Egypt decided to bring thousands here to participate in the biggest iftar meal in the world.
We were looking through the Guinness World Book of Records, the book, and we saw that Ajman had done it last year. We decided that we'd do it this year, simply to try and show people that we want to get the Egyptians together, and to showcase all the great things that are happening here in the new capital city. So we went to the capital city and we told them a great way to showcase the developers and the things that we're doing here in the new capital city is during Ramadan is to bring the people together and do a really big iftar for everybody.
The target was to break UAE's Ajman city's record for the longest table, which was 2,983.6 meters long. Around 7,000 people joined this world record attempt, all excited to become part of registering a new achievement for their country.
People need to feel that when they come together, great things can happen. It's why all of us showed up so that, together, we could break a new world record. The new capital is a new start for a new life that is designed to become a capital for Egyptians.
It's incredible to see how the new capital is shaping up, that it's capable of hosting thousands now, to have dinner and even stay for entertainment. There are now buildings everywhere, and very soon life will come to this desert. It truly is amazing.
It took organizers about 4 weeks to prepare for this iftar, and with a table more than 3,189 meters long, the new capital has entered the Guinness World Book of Records. The 714 square kilometer city plans to have the highest building in Africa. It also aims to become the first green capital in the continent. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
And we are now joined by CGTN correspondents Adel Mahroui in Cairo, Abdulaziz Bello in Mogadishu, and Fili Haza in Abuja. Adel, let's begin with you. Egyptian Muslims are winding up fasting alongside their fellow Muslims around the world. How would you describe the social and security situation there in Cairo during the fasting period?
First of all, Eid Mubarak, Ramadan is over, as you said, and it means that millions of Egyptians will be taking the street in a festive 3 days long feast. They will be going for picnics, going to travel across the country, and all in part of celebrations to mark the end of their almost 30 days long fasting. Security, of course, is always an issue, especially as the war against terrorism in Egypt still continues. But it is always have a routine measure the government has of stepping up its security measures. They push thousands of security personnel to protect areas that are expected to be populous, and more or less most of the Eids have passed almost uneventful in terms of accidents, which has been quite great in the past years, and similar expectations are to start happening earlier in the morning as Muslims gather for their Eid prayer, which is the first prayer after Ramadan, marking the beginning of their 3 days feast. That's when people take the streets early in the morning, right after dawn, and stay up until after midnight in Cairo and major Egyptian cities to give it sort of a livelihood touch and make it a festive joint between all Egyptian sects to take down the streets, enjoy the weather, and etc. So basically, security forces are always on their highest alert, and whenever there is a necessity for intervention, there is always a security personnel nearby for assistance.
Abdul, the Somali capital Mogadishu has experienced some terror attacks, and last week we saw the authorities asking citizens to be more vigilant and report suspicious characters. How are the security preparations for the big day, and what is the mood in the capital now?
Well, you're right, Peninah. Security has been a key issue of concern, especially during the Muslim fasting period of Ramadan. Now, just 2 weeks into Ramadan, the militant group Al-Shabaab was able to carry out one deadly attack here in the city, detonating an explosive-laden vehicle at a security checkpoint near the country's presidential palace, killing 10 people, among them a former government minister. So security forces are not taking any chances, and after that attack, they've beefed up security along major roads and major junctions and intersections, and that will be the mood throughout until the end of Ramadan and until the day of Eid. So security personnel have been deployed along major roads, and one major directive that the police commissioner recently enforced, he said that due to the massive number of people going to do shopping ahead of Eid, people should be on the lookout for suspicious characters and activities and report it through a hotline number that was given to the locals to call the police to report in case of suspicious activities. This is one way of thwarting potential terrorist attacks, where Al-Shabaab normally targets public and populated areas, including shopping malls and downtown markets. So security forces are not taking any chances, and especially on the big day of Eid, main roads will be sealed off because many people will be going towards the mosque for the massive prayers, and families will be taking their children to playgrounds to have fun on that day. So security forces are not taking any chances. And one thing also to note, throughout the history of Somalia, there's been no major terrorist attack, especially during Eid, and that is what security forces here want to ensure, that the Eid is celebrated without any incidents.
Okay, let's come to you, Phil, in Abuja. A difficult month for some Nigerian states with rising insecurity, but we have seen efforts by governors and the president to contain the situation. Does the end of the holy month bring with it any better prospects?
Well, thank you, Peninah. Just like you said, there's been efforts, concerted efforts by the governors, the president, to see how that they can, reduce the insecurity issues in the country or tackle them. As we speak, there's just been, an approval by the president himself for the commencement of state and local government policing across the country. That's a welcome development. But looking at the fact that Ramadan is going to bring better prospects, that's only going to be dependent on the Muslim leaders across the country taking advantage of this opportunity of about a month, where millions of Muslim faithfuls across the country are fellowshipping and meeting together to experience a wholesome time of worship and fast and pray. So it's only if, because security analysts have always said this is not the first Ramadan, but they've said that, for example, the insurgency, which is a decade-long war, has been on for close to 10 years, and several Ramadan has held. But the Muslim leaders will need to take advantage of the opportunity that it brings to sensitize their followers, millions of followers across the country, to eschew violence, crimes and all of that, as well as discourage them from being easy recruits to these extremists who carry out attacks across the country. Also, there are several other things that would have to be fixed apart from the Ramadan for insecurity to be killed in Nigeria, and that's looking at the economic issues, fixing the educational sector, and a whole lot more. The unemployment is there. There are idle youths that are easy recruits. But then, like I said, it's only going to be dependent on the Muslim leaders to see how that they can encourage their faithfuls, millions of faithfuls across the country, to stay away or abstain from criminal vices, as the case may be.
All right, back to you, Adel. Reports of a grand and record-breaking iftar dinner in the new Egyptian administrative capital. We saw a little bit of it in your report, but talk to us more about that.
It's a huge dining table, more than 3 kilometers long. It means that when you start to walk from one tip to the other, it will take you more than half an hour just walking by, seeing people eating all along. It's the biggest now in the world according to Guinness's World Book of Records, and it has been official. The announcement has been made, giving the new administrative Egyptian capital that title of having the longest dining table. The purpose was mainly to promote the new capital in general. It has been coming up very heavily. The government have been moving intensively to maintain that there will be life in this new remote area just about 40 kilometers east of Cairo. And to promote it, it has just given a proof that there is a huge hotel that can host more than 7,000 people to have iftar at the same time. All of these have been used to give that administrative capital sort of a boost that it needs. The government is planning to start moving by next year, and residents should follow once the government settles into the new administrative capital. But overall, it's an event that has been quite celebrated here, as it's about the third Guinness's record that the country gets within about 6 weeks. So for Egyptians, it's a new achievement that they will be proud of.
Just simply incredible, Adel. Thank you very much for that. Adel Mahri live in Cairo, Feli Haza live in Abuja, and Abdulaziz Bilo in Mogadishu. Thank you all for joining us. Well, let's now cross over to Uja for the latest in business news.
Thank you, Peninah. And here's a look at what's coming up on Africa Live Biz. China releases white paper detailing its stance on the trade war with the U.S. And the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration discloses that Boeing's 737 MAX aircraft contains improperly manufactured parts.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Well, let's start off with some international news. The Chinese government in a new white paper blames Washington for the trade tensions between the two countries. The document details China's stance on the trade standoff and contends that Washington has repeatedly gone back on its words during negotiations.
When it comes to trade war, our position is consistent and clear. China does not want to have a trade war. But if it happens, China is not fearful of a trade war.
Strong words from a white paper detailing China's stance on the U.S. trade war. The document contains some of Beijing's strongest rebuttals yet against the administration of U.S. President Donald Trump.
The white paper stresses the economic and trade friction provoked by the U.S. damaged the interest of both countries and the wider world. The U.S. imposed tariffs harm others and are of no benefits to the U.S. itself, impeding two-way trade and undermining market confidence and economic stability. The trade war does not make America great again.
The document says the U.S. has repeatedly gone back on its word during the trade talks. Since early 2018, Washington has threatened to add 25% tariffs on $50 billion in Chinese goods, and another 10% tariffs on $200 billion in Chinese goods. The U.S. has tried to justify its moves by saying China steals intellectual property through forced technology transfers, accusations which Beijing says are groundless. Chinese officials say in the final phase of talks, Washington bullied and imposed extreme pressure, insisting on clauses that would violate China's sovereignty.
The U.S. government should bear the sole and entire responsibility for these severe setbacks in China-U.S. economic and trade consultations. Any agreement reached by the two sides must be based on equality and a mutual benefit. China would not back down on major issues of principle.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration says that Boeing's 737 MAX aircraft contains improperly manufactured parts. Now, according to the disclosure, 148 leading-edge slat tracks, which were manufactured by a Boeing sub-tier supplier, are affected. These faults cover the 179 MAX and 133 NG aircrafts worldwide. However, Boeing also says it has not yet been notified of any in-service issues relating to the slat tracks. The 737 MAX fleet was grounded globally in March following the fatal crash of Ethiopia and the Lion Air disaster in Indonesia, which together killed about 346 people. Now, the FAA is set to issue an airworthiness directive that requires the removal of the faulty parts, and operators are to perform this action within 10 days. And heading back to the continent now, South African Airways CEO Vuyani Jarana has resigned after less than 2 years in office. Now, his departure is attributed to the undermining of the turnaround strategy, which has been faltered by bureaucracy and a lack of state funding. Now, the carrier is also weighed down by accrued debt, which currently stands at about $630 million. The 5-year strategy incorporated by the management was set to reduce costs and cancel unprofitable routes that, of course, outstrip revenue growth. President Cyril Ramaphosa has been seeking to speed up reforms at the government-owned entities, which of course have been regularly cited by rating agencies as key threats to the country's economic growth. And Zimbabwe's future negotiations with foreign creditors may be complicated, and that's because of debt sustainability. The country has been using mineral exports as collateral, but this is now threatened by the poor performance of the economy. It is made worse by drought and the recent cyclone that hit the country. The Southern African nation needs to restructure its $8.8 billion debt with the International Monetary Fund. President Emmerson Mnangagwa's government has implemented financial and monetary reforms, including an IMF staff program intended to pay off multilateral lenders and creditors. Now, of course, it's almost the end of the Ramadan season, but in Libya, there are not much signs of the holy month as the political situation there has had its effects on the economy. Here's CGTN's Yasser Hakim with more.
The holy month of Ramadan comes in the midst of a war between Libya's two main powers, the Libyan National Army and the UN-backed government in Tripoli. The instability has had a negative effect on the country's main sources of revenue.
The oil sector has been hit hard, with production virtually on a standstill. Other sectors like air freight and seaports, which are important sources of revenue, have also been affected. The situation has led to the exit of investors and closure of projects, which has increased the levels of unemployment among the youth to 45% and 24% overall.
The foreign reserves dropped by half to $67 billion. And the war has had its toll on the Libyan citizens as well.
Sales have been affected badly this year. You've been standing here for a while. Did you see anybody but anything? People are not buying because of the war. Before Ramadan and the war, things were much better.
Ramadan has been tough this year. Besides the extreme heat, there are no jobs or pay because of the circumstances. You can feel the recession this month.
Neighboring countries have been providing aid and basic goods and necessities. Egyptian business delegations have also applied for reconstruction projects in the war-ravaged country. The dire economic situation is expected to continue as long as the war is prolonged. Libya, which was once one of the richest economies in the region, is now fighting for survival. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Now, South Africa's leading economic city and cultural capital, Johannesburg, has now launched a new tourism ambassadors program. The key focus of this 3-year initiative is to deploy ambassadors to tourism sites across the city in order to boost its market value. Now, the program will also make Johannesburg a safer destination for both domestic and international travelers. Here's CGTN's Julie Shire with the details.
Johannesburg is known as the City of Gold. Its origins date back to 1886 when gold was first discovered. It's now a bustling metropolis and the most visited African city, attracting over 4 million international visitors a year. But it's also notorious for being dangerous.
I think people have a very negative perception about Johannesburg with regards to safety and security and whether or not they are safe in walking the streets and visiting various locations. We do have a very high crime rate in terms of common petty crimes, but I think that there are aspects that we are dealing with as a city, including increasing our JMPD, the city force, by over 50%.
To further enhance safety and boost the city's image, a tourism ambassador program has been launched. 60 young people have been employed and trained as the faces of Johannesburg and to help visitors get around.
They will be showcasing what the city has to offer, telling people where to go, places of amusement they can go and visit, or festivities or art shows, or whatever takes their fancy. I think even domestic tourists don't know what's around them in Johannesburg.
Johannesburg is the heartbeat of the country's economy. It is renowned for having the continent's richest square mile, where many go to find their fortune. But it also has the most number of unemployed youth.
This is not only just a job opportunity, but then it's for me getting exposure, getting opportunities, because I believe that with this program, I will find my feet in the corporate world and getting to know the work environment. And this for me is also a stepping stone.
It's going to be helpful to me because I'm going to provide, because I believe that I'm a breadwinner at home. So it also means that I'm going to work very hard in order for me to put Joburg on the map.
These ambassadors are ready to hit the ground running, and they will provide a rich experience for people visiting the city. Julie Shara, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Well, that's all for now on Africa Live Biz, but coming up on Global Business Africa, we will stay with the story of Vuyani Jarana, the South African Airways CEO who resigned. He, of course, is the second CEO of a state-owned enterprise in South Africa to do so in a matter of weeks. Of course, we'll be examining the details. All that coming up top of the hour. For now, back to you, Peninah.
Thank you, Uche. You're watching Africa Live. Still ahead. What is hidden? We bring you the Kumpo mask dance from Senegal.
Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes. The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Panata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
In the Casamance region of southern Senegal, masked performances are at the center of the culture. In the Jola ethnic group, there are several mask dances used during traditional occasions. The most popular is the Kumpo. Between Gambia and Guinea-Bissau, Kumpo is a traditional mythological figure of the Jola people. In the local language, Kumpo means what is hidden. Nobody knows the true identity of the wearer of the mask. According to researchers, the origins of the Kumpo date back to 1930. The Jola people believe the Kumpo is inhabited by the protective spirit of the forest. It provides a spiritual, environmental and cultural education to youth that promotes the protection of nature.
Parce que c'est le moment où l'islamisation était forte.
1930 was the moment when Islam and Christianity were strong. The Jola people used the Kumpo as an institution to block those religions. They wanted to show that as an animist society, they are conservative and that they didn't want to relegate to a secondary position their culture. The Kumpo has a role of social regulator and guardian of the society. It is there to settle conflicts, but also to keep away all evil spirits from the people.
Forget the normal deck of French playing cards. A Nigerian visual artist has invented playing cards featuring ancient kingdom personalities and classical artwork from the Kingdom of Benin. Osaze Amadashun hopes the Benin deck of playing cards will help more Nigerians interact with their history and culture. Here's CGTN's Noel Mokugu with more details.
25-year-old Osaze Omadusan is working on what may be his crowning achievement at his workplace in Lagos. The drawing he's working on is of Oba Esije, a king who is known for his contribution to the emergence of bronze casting in the Kingdom of Benin. British soldiers seized thousands of Benin's bronzes in 1897, one of a series of acts of plunder that have long tainted relations between London and the territories where the agents held sway in the 19th century. Osaze believes that there are other ways Nigerians to interact with their history, while appeals continue for the looted artifacts to be returned.
We've heard about the oral traditions, stories. We know about the Benin bronzes. What other medium can we pass across the message and still push this tradition, keeping in line with the values and the stories that were told that we know?
Osaze, an architect, says he became fascinated with Benin's history and mythology while working on an academic project that required the design of an Oba Esije theme park. He soon began using 3D software to replicate Benin artifacts as a hobby, and that led to the idea of putting Benin's historical figures on playing cards.
The deck of cards is similar to what you have in the French deck. So the king basically is the Oba of Benin in my design for the deck of cards. The queen is the queen mother, that's Queen Idia from the famous Festac 77 mask. And the jack is the Iyase of Benin, as back then he was the general commander of the Benin army.
He holds court regularly to get feedback from his contemporaries.
All of the illustrations are illustrations of Obas and then other symbolic figures in Benin art and Benin culture. It's incredibly detailed for a first set. Like, there are like illustrations on the back, on the flaps. Like, you don't see like details on flaps of like playing cards.
A deck of Benin playing cards is sold for $14 US. Osaze has sold 60 packs since he started promoting them in April. He says he regularly gets expatriates as customers who are very excited about the piece of work. Osaze hopes to promote Benin history more through his Benin deck cards. Noel Mokugu, CGTN.
The Dragon Boat Festival has been held at Lokadon waterfront in Port Louis. The Dragon Boat Festival celebrates the memory of Chu Yuan, a Chinese poet who lived in the 4th century BC. A dozen teams take to the water in an attempt to achieve victory in the strange-colored canoes. The event in Mauritius is in its 14th edition this year. It is a traditional and popular event on the Chinese calendar, which has been able to create interculturality among the Mauritian population. Audiences come to watch every year and cheer for their favorite team.
We had a very nice turnout and also a very good race, and congratulations to the winner. And we hope that again and again we are going to have the Dragon Boat, and what we wish is that the Dragon Boat Festival becomes a regional activity here for the whole region. Different countries within the Indian Ocean can participate, and also we can enhance this festival here in Mauritius.
Every year we come from Rodrigues Island, which is like a 1 hour 30 minutes flight from Rodrigues to here. We come here just for this special event, and it costs us nothing to come here. Just to be here to encourage our people, our team. It's the thing that makes us very happy to see our family winning this and having so much people to get in contact with, like you people from other country, from abroad. We are getting in touch with you and to make you know much more about us, about Rodrigues, our background, our cultures and tradition.
And coming up in sports, the Akibua Memorial has been granted ranking status by athletics governing body IAAF.
Africa, where champions are made, records are broken, legends are born. We're there for every goal, for every knockout, every step of the way.
Match Point, only on CGTN.